Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar sponsored by Savvly, your personal pension designed to provide lifelong financial security and peace of mind. I'm here with David Blanchett, the head of retirement at Prudential, and certainly somebody who's put a lot of deep thinking into this space, both from a theoretical standpoint and as an active portfolio manager, if I'm correct.
That's correct.
Okay, awesome, David. Well, it's nice to have you here.
Good to be here.
Cool, cool. So what advice can you share for our audience as they're thinking about their own retirement and they're thinking about, the risks that exist? I mean, right now it's obviously very volatile time. This is being recorded shortly before the presidential election. We have geopolitical risks in the Middle East and in Ukraine. We have potential financial risks, some of which people are aware of, some of which they're not. In this environment, what advice can you give people to help ensure that they have the highest chance of a happy, even luxurious retirement in their old age?
Yeah, I mean the easiest advice is to save early and save often, right? And save a lot. I think that's really all that we can do. But I think that, in reality, there's just so many risks to worry about in retirement. And I think that saving is really important, but so is having a good plan. And the importance of a plan, I think, really starts to crystallize as we move closer to retirement. I think that retirement's kind of a mirage when you're 25 or 30 years old. It's this thing that might happen in 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 years. And so it's not real, but it becomes very real as you get older, as you get in your 40s and 50s. So I think that, actively making good choices to ensure that you can retire and then reviewing your status as you progress towards retirement is just critical. And then as you're getting there, figure out like what is the right plan for me based upon my assets, my income, my goals, my preferences, stuff like that.
Okay, so the things that I heard there, because I kind of like distill three things out of that. One is saving, is
Yes.
importance on saving. Number two is have a plan and be checking in on that plan.
Mhm.
To not just necessarily put something together and then come back in 20 years and hope that it did what it's supposed to do, but
Right.
be on the ball. And then the third one was the one at the very end.
Personalize. I think it
Personalization.
needs to be. I mean, the thing is, like accumulation isn't easy, but like if you're saving 20, 30%, if you're invested in a target date fund, if you have life insurance, and there's a lot of things that you could do that are going to be relatively generally optimal. But as you get to retirement, like the right portfolio can vary radically, allocations to lifetime income can be very different. And so I think that like the role of a personalized plan, I think just becomes really, really important the closer you get to retirement.
Okay, yeah. The personalization. And so what exactly, so I think the save early, save often, that's something that everybody can digest. I
Yeah.
think putting together a plan and checking in on that plan, um, two questions that I'm going to have on that. But before we go to that, I want to ask about the personalization. What does that look like and how does that play out for people?
You know, in theory, it's a financial advisor, financial professional, right? Because it's tough to do. And I think that a lot of advisors are great, but they often kind of come at retirement with very narrow toolkits. Some will talk only about building a portfolio, or I mean, they'll bring a client a plan and not be, forthright in the fact that they only tend to focus on certain things. Like they don't maybe allocate to longevity solutions, or maybe that's all that they do. And so I think that in a perfect world, everyone gets like a holistic plan that considers kind of all the different, potential products or solutions that are out there, not just the ones the advisors commonly use. And I think that's where there's this kind of wide array right now of the services advisors provide. I think that there are more advisors providing more holistic recommendations. But I just think that too often today, when I talk to people or advisors, they aren't coming at solving retirement with really all the tools that are available.
So it's kind of a like they've got a hammer and so everything's a nail.
Yes, that is one way to describe it. Yeah.
Okay. And so then when we go back to the thing, the question I was going to say for people putting together a plan is, in my mind, that kind of bifurcates into putting together a plan with an advisor, which comes to this personalization thing, and then also putting together a plan without an advisor.
Right.
So it sounds like you're pretty strongly in favor of having an advisor, but also finding the right advisor who really takes a holistic approach.
Yeah, I mean, I've met lots of retirees that can do it themselves, right? That are sophisticated, well-read, things like that. But I think that like there's just things that people tend to lean into and lean out of. It takes a lot of expertise around retirement to kind of build efficient plans. And a lot of folks that think they know what they're doing that aren't advisors really don't know what they're doing. And so I think that there is a definite role for the need for quality advice. I think the issue can sometimes be just identifying how good the advice is and how the advisor truly is using all the different possible solutions available to really kind of tackle that person's unique plan. I mean, I went to lunch with someone the other day and the advisor recommended an annuity and that's all they recommended. They had like no, there was no plan, there was no like this is how much you can spend. It was just like it was just a product sale. And I'm like, that's
Yeah,
not, that's
that's
what
sales. That's
someone is
not.
doing that's not probably what you need. I told him, I was like, to be honest, the product was actually a pretty good product. And I was like, you may actually want to buy this exact product here in a few years when you retire. But my concern was just the process. The process was not one with which they kind of tried to discover all of what someone wanted to do. And so I think that's the problem. It's like, and I was very clear, like this literally could be the perfect product for you. But if you're not coming at it from a holistic perspective, it's hard to really know if it truly is the best thing for you to do right now.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that because as you say, that process is sales. That process isn't advice. That process isn't guidance. That process is, hey, I have a thing that I want to sell you so I can get a commission. It's like,
Yes, I mean, yeah, yeah.
what percentage of people do you think are capable of doing their own retirement effectively?
So, I don't know, right? I think that like my parents have hardly relied on me for guidance or my brother, and we're both relatively knowledgeable on financial and investing topics
You're
because they
relatively
have a what's
knowledgeable.
that? What's
You're
that?
relatively knowledgeable. I
Relatively
think you're
knowledgeable, yeah.
a little bit more than that.
Just above average, just a hair above average, because they have pensions, right? They have income because they were both public school teachers that they can't outlive, and that's the vast majority of their wealth. And so like for them, I mean, it's a very different situation than your father. Like there's not a whole lot they can mess up, right? So to me, I think that where as a nation, as a global society, we're kind of moving to a more dangerous place is where less people have pensions, more of them have individual savings, and they have to figure out how to convert that bucket of cash into something that creates income for life. And products like annuities, like tontines, like lots of things can radically simplify that. The key is making sure that that's what's best for them. But I think that's to me when I think about retirement, there's like the academic perspective of what is optimal. There's also the behavioral angles, right? Like what allows someone to have peace and enjoy their retirement. And like defined benefit plans are really good for employees. I don't think they make any sense whatsoever for employers. Like it just blows my mind today that a company is going to like hire someone who's 35 years old. They're going to like work there for like 10 years. And then like in 25 years, that company has to start paying that person a benefit that could last another like 25. Like that just doesn't make any sense to me at all, given our workforce today. But what does make sense is the notion of a defined benefit in retirement. And so I think that's where we're seeing more interest among Americans because your question about how many can do it, I think that a lot more retirees can do it now. We'll be able to do it 5 or 10 or 20 years in the future if more people get to retirement and have a bucket of a half million, $1 million or more dollars, because it's really hard to figure out how to really effectively use that to then fund spending when they retire.
So what you're saying is that somebody's ability to do this on their own is affected by a couple of factors. So one is their own savvy and their own capacity to manage this. The second is the amount that they're bringing in, right? Which gets
Yeah,
back to save early and save often thing.
right.
And then the third is the availability of products to manage longevity risk. Is that something?
Well, I mean, to me, like let's just say that you're terrible at managing money,
Right.
right? But you have let's just say you have a defined benefit and you have a Social Security that more than covers your spending. Like it doesn't really matter. Like there's things that you can do on the margin, like talk about long-term care insurance, things like that. But like, to me, like the range of possible outcomes is pretty freaking narrow and it's pretty good. Like, there isn't like the bad isn't so bad, right? Like where things get bad is I've been an excellent saver my entire life. I'm gonna do a really good job, and then I fall for like a romance scam and I lose all my money like that, right? Or something happens where, that pool of money is now vulnerable and where it could have created 50,000, 80,000, whatever amount per year for life, there's at risk for it being zero if someone makes incredibly poor choices around investing whatever else. And so to me, it's even if you're knowledgeable, people still, panic and they make bad decisions. And it just takes one really, really bad decision over a really long possible retirement. We know that things like cognitive decline happen that can really make it in poorly for that individual or their family. So like that's my concern is even if you are sophisticated, things can happen. And so I think that's where like an advisor that's a professional is kind of a buffer between making bad decisions. But I did some work on how to incorporate regret into portfolio optimizations because you can still fire your advisor, right? Your advisor can still be saying like, hey, you can have the best advisor in the world and they can say like, no, you shouldn't put all your money in Bitcoin. But like if you decide that that's what you're going to do and you fire the advisor and put it all on Bitcoin, maybe that's going to be great, but like maybe it's not great. And so I think that there's a lot of complicated things to think about, especially given how long retirement could possibly last.
Yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't considered the cognitive decline part. I mean, you can have somebody who, for whatever reason may have been sharp their whole life, and something starts to happen, and before it's really apparent and this and that, somebody convinced them to put all their money into this crypto coin. And
Well, and there's moments of vulnerability. Like, I mean, the average male is 2 years older than the average female in a married couple. Women live 3 to 5 years longer than the average men on average of the same age. So it creates this period, if the male spouse on average passes away early, like what happens to the money? Like, are they does she change? And so like, there's just points where, and there's often it's the male who's more financially literate. So like, I just, like my concern is that it's not clear to me that we are all uniquely qualified as individuals to manage large pools of money as we get older into retirement, but that's the system we have today, and that's how it's going to be unless people make active choices around how to kind of transform that wealth into other forms of income.
another big component around like, hey, listen, find an advisor you trust and like really let them do their thing, really
Mhm.
let them work.
But then, like, even if you find an advisor, and like, how long are they going to be your advisor for? Right? I mean, if you hire them, and you're both 45 years old, when you retire, they're going to be right about at retirement age. You have to find a new advisor. You better trust whomever they sell their book of business to or who comes in So I think, again, I think advisors can add tremendous value. The problem is just that they just the scope of services is very different, right? The relationships, the products is all very different. And so on average, there's definitely a benefit there, but there's just definitely instances where it's not beneficial and it's not actually going to help that person achieve a better outcome.
So what would you suggest? What would you recommend that people do?
I mean, like I hate to say like you have to work with the CFP or you have to work with a fiduciary, but like that's like an easy signal relating to quality,
Mhm.
right? So like if you have designations and there's a wide range of quality designations, and my concern is there's designations letters you can get that take an hour or 2 hours and you're done. You can probably get I could get 10 designations in a day if I wanted to, if I just, figured them out. And so like, it's not, to me, like, that's where like, it's not quantity, it's quality. And I think like designations like the CFP, maybe the CHFC, CPA, those are ones that suggest some level of quality. And I know lots of advisors that don't have them that are great, but like there's all this asymmetric information. I'm a person that wants to hire someone. How do I know that this person is honest and knowledgeable and trustworthy? Well, I think having things like the CPA are good. Excuse me, CFP or other marks like that. I think being a fiduciary is usually a good thing. I think that there's things that out of the gate that can help. Making sure they've been in the business for a while. These are all things that, in theory, should reduce the probability of working with someone that's not knowledgeable, that's going to just sell them a product and that doesn't know what they're talking about.
Longevity is a big risk. That's
Yes,
what you
probably the
mentioned.
biggest risk. I mean, I call longevity like the multiplier because like everything else just gets worse the longer you live, right? Like if you have a short retirement, other things like inflation risk, long-term care risk, like it's just not that big of a deal. Like if retirement lasts 10 years, it's not that big of a deal. When retirement lasts, you know, 20 or 30 or 40 years, like that's where other risks get amplified, and actually like the odds of bad things happening increase. Like the odds of, having a long-term care event like increase exponentially at older ages. And so it's not like a linear increase as you age. Like the risks kind of explode when you move into especially super advanced ages.
Okay, so when you say super advanced ages, what are you talking about? Like,
I was like 90, 95 plus, like, and that really honestly isn't super advanced, but it really is in terms of how we think about retirement. If we go back, 100, 200 years, like people just didn't live that long. Like, retirement itself, like you retired when you're 60, 65, you lived for 15 years and then you pretty much passed away. Well, like now we're seeing, a very, very good possibility of, for example, if you've got a married couple age 65, the average person that works with an advisor, there's about a 50% chance that one of them will live longer than age 95 in retirement. Like that's crazy, right? And the key is that's not the average American. The average American, that couple, is only like 20%, but there's a growing divide in mortality expectations for wealthier Americans that actually have wealth to kind of invest in retirement, make choices with. And so like they're the ones that kind of are going to face an increase in array of risk because they're just going to live longer and have like I mean like it's a good problem to have. Like you're not going to have a short retirement, but that also creates issues and uncertainty you have to deal with.
yep. It's interesting. I think I recall somebody I know in the longevity space, who you've met, saying that if people live to a certain age, their odds of having a long-term care event actually go down because most people who would have a long-term care event are dead by that age.
I everything I've seen is like the odds of having a long-term care event just increase as you get older. And so I guess I'm not, I don't, it's kind of like it's like the odds of dying if you survive increase at every age. Like they don't go down. Like they just
Right.
keep
The
increasing.
odds of dying always increase. That I
Yes. But
yes.
I've never seen this that suggests that people, the odds of having any kind of like long-term care event decline at some kind of advanced or older age.
So I think it was that like your or like your odds, it may have been the odds of like dementia specifically. It's like if you haven't had it and you're 100, chances are you're gonna be fine.
Well, maybe I mean like 100, 105, like like maybe at some point like that's the case. But I think more generally I'm thinking like 85, 90, 95. But I think to your
Yeah, yeah.
point, like we're gonna start seeing like to me like what like longevity risk. The risk isn't in the average; it's in the variance, right?
Right.
It's in the distribution of outcomes. And I think what worries me again, like living a long time should not worry anyone, but it worries me because like it's really hard to plan for retirement when it could last 10 years or 50 years. And the
Mhm.
variance, I'm like, I don't know that we're going to see a huge increase in like average mortality. People will still pass away at 67, 68, but I think we're going to see this rising variance. We're going to have a lot more retirees who are 100, 105. And that is just really hard to plan for when you don't know if retirement's going to last 15 years or 45 years.
I mean, because if you just think about it, like most people, when you're doing financial advisory, right, there are kind of two approaches to it. One is we make sure that you're only living off of the gains and the capital is never decreasing.
Yep.
And then the other is we decumulate at a point that ends farther than when you're expected to live.
Yep.
But even if you're doing that first one, if you get hit with a big loss because of the way losses and gains work, now you're on a decumulation path anyway,
Right.
right?
Yes.
So, and very few people are going to have enough wealth that they can be on an accumulation path where their portfolio is growing every year on average
Right.
more
If
than
you're,
they're
I mean, if
expected.
you're pulling out like 1 or 2% a year, like sure, you're good, but like that's not most Americans. Like most Americans
Right.
don't have this like massive pot of wealth. They can, just like take a tiny top off, every year. It's they need like I mean, to be fair too, like if you've done that, then you've kind of massively oversaved, right? Obviously, they get lucky, they work for Nvidia, but for most Americans, like the only reason that you
Yeah,
put money in your 401k is that you can live off of it in retirement. And it's a balance. I mean, like because you save the money, you didn't spend the money today, right? You chose not to go on a vacation or buy a new car or whatever it was. You made an active choice to defer your consumption. And so I think that, like yes, like giving money to your kids is an important goal for a lot of Americans, but like to me, first and foremost, like it's all about enjoying your retirement and doing things that you can do to enjoy your retirement. And so yes, it's great if you have this giant pot of money that you're not going to use, but then it's just but then what's the point?
Yeah, how did you get there?
Right. I mean, and again, my guess is it's just all the unique idiosyncratic things that happen across people's life cycles. Like maybe there's an inheritance. You worked for a lucky company, you won the lottery, things happen. But I think like mass America, like they have to access that savings, but accessing savings is terrifying when you don't know how long you're going to live and what markets are going to do. And so people have a really hard time drawing down upon their wealth because they just don't know how long they're going to live. And no one wants to go work at Walmart when you're 85 years old. And so people just by nature underconsume as they move through retirement because like the fear of outliving resources, I think just grows with age.
Yeah. So here's a question here, right? Because on one hand, you said save early, save often. And on the other hand, you said, hey, listen, you can save too much and
Yep.
then, you can oversave.
Yep.
So if you had to pick a split of like how many people are on the undersaving versus oversaving, what would you say the numbers are?
Oh, well, I mean, as a country, we're definitely undersaving, right? I don't think I think we don't have a retirement crisis. Maybe we have a retirement savings crisis, but I think the Americans, on average, are going to have retirements where they don't maintain the same standard of living when they were working. That's probably okay because things can kind of change radically for individuals as they kind of move from their 40s, 50s to 60s. So most Americans are not saving enough. But then, like, even if you haven't saved enough, you're still going to have those same fears if you've saved a lot. Like, I need to make sure I have money to support myself, my spouse, whomever, as long as I'm in retirement. And to me, like the only thing that I found that I think that does an effective job in helping individuals use their savings is just transforming savings to lifetime income, right? So I have a piece of research with Michael Finke at the American College about we were looking at guaranteed lifetime income, so like pension, social security, annuities, and there's just tons of evidence that people that have more of their wealth in lifetime income utilize it more. So so for example, like we find that the average withdrawal rate from qualified or non-qualified savings for a 65-year-old married couple is about 2%. Okay. That is like well below the 4% rule or a 5% target. So people underconsume their savings, but they tend to consume almost all of their lifetime income. People are okay spending lifetime income. They're not okay spending wage income, capital income, qualified savings because of all the uncertainties there. And so I think that to me the key is I think that every American, even like Bill Gates, should have income that is protected for life that they cannot outlive. And I think then beyond that, you decide how do you want to allocate more of your wealth potentially to any kind of solution that's based on longevity. And I think to me, like what it does is that there's the obvious economic benefits with risk pooling, but there's also just like the behavioral aspect, like, hey, I know no matter how long I live, I'm going to be taken care of. And I think that can help Americans or really anyone just better utilize their wealth to fund retirement. If you have a giant pot of money, congratulations, but there's a lot of uncertainty there. And the more that you can remove uncertainty around, will I have enough income to live off of as long as I'm alive? I think that just helps people better utilize those savings and enjoy it more than just actively choosing to let that pot of money keep growing.
Okay, cool, 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 cool. Well, any final words or final thoughts you have that you to share with our audience?
Yeah, I mean, I think that like I'm a huge fan of like saving and defined contribution plans. I think that we need to more proactively encourage people, to save more and to get access to them. But for the most part, like retirement is becoming, I think, increasingly scary for more Americans, given all the choices you have to make all throughout your life cycle. I think it's problematic. I think it's really a lot to ask every household, every American to bear all these idiosyncratic risks. And so I think that the more that we like seek new solutions that kind of couple with this defined contribution mindset, the better we're going to have outcomes for Americans. So, like in that, I think like we're making progress, good things are happening, but it's really complicated. And I don't know that most Americans are up for the challenge without serious professional help.
Well, thank you for your contribution, David. I really appreciate it. I think it's certainly a privilege for our audience to get to hear advice from someone with your level of expertise, right? Probably Again, we kind of downplayed it earlier, but you're probably one of the more financially savvy people that they're ever going to come across. So
Better than average, better than average.
thank you so much for your time.
Sure.
Again, everyone, this was David Blanchett, head of retirement from Prudential, here on our webinar sponsored by Savvly, your personal pension designed to provide lifelong financial security and peace of mind.